Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Marketo Engage Champion Ops Hours. This is our APAC and ANZ friendly Champion Ops Hours, and we are so happy to have you all. Today, we're going to have the live Q&A with these four Marketo champions from the 2020 class. Before we get started, just wanted to run through a couple housekeeping items here. I wanted to let you know that this webinar is going to be recorded. We will share this with you after the event to the email that you subscribed and registered to the event with. If you have questions during this, we're going to start with a couple of questions that we had sent in beforehand. But please, if you have questions pop up as you listen, please put them in the Q&A box on your screen. We will try to get to them all. And if you're going to be posting on social media, please use our hashtag MarketingNation if you'd like to share this event anywhere online. So before we get started, wanted to get through a couple of our champion introductions. They'll just say who they are, where they're from, where they're working right now, and just a little bit about themselves. And we'll start with Kyle McCormic.
Cool. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kyle McCormic, and I lead our marketing technology and operations team here at Palo Alto Networks. We are currently based in the Bay Area in Santa Clara, California, but we have offices across the globe in Singapore, Japan, Amsterdam, and regional offices throughout the country and throughout the world. I've been a Marketo champion for the last 2 years, and I've been a Marketo user and Marketo admin for about 7 years now.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kyle. Grace Brebner, we'll go to you next.
Hi, everybody. My name's Grace. I am the Senior Manager of Client Services for the APAC region at Digital Pie. Previously, more recently this year, was also at Tourism Holdings Limited. I'm based in Auckland, New Zealand. I'm the co-mug leader for Auckland with Josh, who's also on this call. And also co-lead the APAC VMUG, which just started up earlier this year. And Josh and I also run the Automation Geeks YouTube channel. And I've been using Marketo for 4 or 5 years now, I think. It all becomes a blur after a while. I think it's about that long.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Grace. Ajay, we'll go to you next.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm Ajay. I happen to be 2020's Marketo's Champion of the Year. Plus, I'm 2 times Marketo Champion. I'm 5 times Marketo Certified Expert and did 9 advanced specialization on marketing automation such as email deliverability, web personalization, ABM. In addition to this, I'm Salesforce Certified, Admin Salesforce Certified, Sales Cloud Consultant and App Builder. Plus, I'm co-leading Virtual Visible User Group for Marketo. So it's been almost 1.5 years since I started my own consulting practice, and I'm helping my clients to implement the best practices of marketing automation and visible and marketing attribution and all other cool stuff. So it's been more than 10 years since I have been using Marketo. So excited to be a part of this journey and glad that you all are able to dial in. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ajay. And Josh, Pickles, we will go to you last.
Good day, everybody. Yeah, I'm Josh Pickles. I am the customer experience lead at Crimson Global Academy. We're New Zealand's first global online high school. Yeah, I've been using Marketo for coming on about 6, 7 years now, I think. But as sort of Grace pointed out, I sort of help co-run the Auckland user group and am one half of the Automation Geeks.
Awesome. Thank you all for those introductions. We're going to get started here with some questions that we got from our audience beforehand. Kyle, we'll start with you for the first question. And the question is, my company is struggling to stay under our contracted number of records. I've heard many cons of blocking the sync of records from SFDC to Marketo. What would you recommend?
Cool. Yeah, no, that's definitely a good question. So the last couple of companies I worked for, we also had the same issue, right? You always want to have as many records as you can have in Marketo, but this eventually comes a time where you have to restrict the number of records that you have syncing between the two. So yeah, definitely blocking the records from the sync from Marketo to Salesforce or from Salesforce back to Marketo is definitely important to have. I think one of the things that you really need to think through is just having a process on what to do when you need to get those records back into Marketo. So for us, a lot of the records that we don't sync into Marketo are customers that have a support portal access, but they're not necessarily ready for marketing. And one of the challenges that we face, that I've faced in the last 7 years as well, is when that record eventually does come into Marketo and then you sync it into Salesforce, you're going to have a duplicate record. So really having a strategy behind what to do with those duplicate records. And then the other thing to think about too is when you merge the records in Salesforce, if you select the record that is marked as do not sync to Marketo as the master record, when you merge those two records, that record essentially becomes an orphan within Marketo, because if the master record is marked as do not sync, Marketo is not going to actually see that master record. And when you do that merge activity in Salesforce, you're really going to lose that connection between the two, and you're going to have an orphan record. So I would highly recommend working through that duplicate strategy and what the process is actually going to look like when you do that duplicate cleanup, making sure that you do sync that master record back into Marketo. Both of those records are in Marketo, and then do the merge in Marketo or Salesforce. So it's definitely a very common issue. A lot of people I've talked to also have that sync filter. So I do recommend using it. But you do have to be aware of that limitation of making sure when you do the merge and do that cleanup effort that both of those records are synced into Salesforce or into Marketo.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kyle. Grace, why don't you take this next one? The question is, I noticed that I can nest an event program within a default program. Will you please elaborate the benefits of nesting programs? Is it just tidy housekeeping?
Sure. Full disclosure, I can get kind of obsessive compulsive about the way things are organized in any instance I touch. So the tidy housekeeping thing, I'm always very much like, don't imply that's not important, because it really is. Keeping your instance well organized and well structured over like a longer period of time will always benefit you. So there totally, absolutely is a tidy housekeeping element to it. If you're doing, say, a live event like some of the events that Adobe has done over the course of this year with like Experience Makers Live or like Summer Being Online, where you may have like multiple event components within a single overarching event where people can register for multiple parts of it. That can be one of the benefits of nesting things into an overarching program, where you can have elements that are, from a reporting perspective, are tied together as part of a greater whole, but you can manage them all a little bit more individually. You can have program statuses in particular managed at the individual levels. You can have someone who's registered for one component, not registered for another component, and you can report on that, and you can also act differently based on that information. You can send people specific emails or not specific emails based on that. There's other benefits as well, as far as things like tokens. Tokens, if you are or are not using them in Marketo, are really fantastic, but the way they work is that they are inherited down through the structure. So if you have a program in a folder, the tokens at the folder level will be inherited down to the program. If you have programs nested within a program, the tokens, let me see if I can explain this in a way without getting visual. The tokens at the parent program level can be inherited down through the programs underneath that. If you can envisage me doing like some sort of a spreadsheet thing here. So from an event perspective, you could have tokens that control the event name or pet URLs that aren't going to change, but then tokens that handle the starting times of specific events handled at the individual sub-program level. So there's tons of different benefits to doing it that way. One of them is good housekeeping.
Great. Thanks so much, Grace. And Ajay, let's go to you next. The upcoming question is, what is the best way to filter bots from a smart campaign? Can they be filtered out of reporting? And how should we handle suspected bots in our database?
Hey, this is a favorite question of mine because many of my clients are dealing with bot issues, or not even clients, even, in general, we also deal with various type of bots, whenever we are using any of the marketing automation platform. So there are multiple ways through which we can identify and prevent the bot filling out the form. And I believe the prevention is the bestest thing. So the best thing, that the first step would be to find out the IP addresses from where these bots are filling our form. Means, are they coming from a specific country? Let's assume China or maybe Russia. So it becomes, and just in case if we are not doing business in such countries where we are getting a lot of traffic, we can simply write a program and we can delete these wickets. So this is the basic infant step, that which I would say. The another one, a bit mature step, would be to have a honeypot field. So what the honeypot field does, that you need to create a text field in the form, Marketo hosted form, and then you need to use CSS to hide it. And the basic logic behind having a honeypot field is that the bots cannot see the hidden fields, and then they will end up filling out that field is as well. So means whenever that field gets populated, you can easily find it out that these are the bots, and then you can purge them. But there is a catch to it. The catch is that what if someone has disabled JavaScript in their browser? Then even the legitimate leads will be able to see this field, and they might key in the values. They might think that while filling out the form, it is needed for them to fill it. So that defeats the purpose. The foolproof solution for avoiding bot form fillouts is Google reCAPTCHA. And there are 3 types of Google reCAPTCHA which we can use. The best one would be to use hidden reCAPTCHA. And all you need to do is just type Google reCAPTCHA, visit Google's site, get your website along with other subdomains of Marketo landing page CNAMEs registered, and then create 2 fields on Marketo, create a webhook. And if you just Google reCAPTCHA Marketo implementation, you will be able to get the complete article along with how you're supposed to set up a webhook, what JavaScript you're supposed to load at the time of form submission, which is going to validate from Google that whether the form fill was legitimate or not. And then the webhook which we have placed on Marketo, that webhook will be called as soon as the form is filled out to validate whether the user who filled out the form was genuine or bot. This is the foolproof solution which I have seen, and that is the bestest way. And I believe it is always good not to let these bots get into our system at first place, because for one of my clients, they were getting more than 25,000 leads created in Marketo as well in Salesforce in less than 10 hours. So that is scary, and we definitely don't want to get into that level. So the best way would be to prevent it at first place, and the easiest way is to use Google reCAPTCHA and use the hidden one. The only catch with that is that, at times you might end up seeing that small little Google reCAPTCHA logo on the down right-hand side of your landing page, but you can even hide that as well. Your web developer needs to write a code to hide that icon, and we should be good. And prevention is the best cure. Means we shouldn't be letting junk leads entering our system, because not only it undermines our email deliverability, but it is a potential source of spam trap which will jeopardize our reputation and sender IP. I hope I answered your question.
Thanks for that great answer, Ajay. And the next question, Josh, why don't you take this one? The question is, how do you recommend managing and reporting on content in Marketo?
Yeah, cool. I guess reporting on content and things. I guess I kind of do this in 2 ways within my Marketo instance. So every campaign that I'm ever running, whether it's an event, whether it's an email, whether it's just an always-on sort of form submission capture, every single one of those have local reports to them. So whether that's a landing page report, whether that's a smart list that's totaling up the number of people who have registered versus registered error in a webinar. I keep a lot of that kind of reporting local to a particular program. One of the other things that I also do is I do have a centralized reporting folder within Marketo as well, where that's an opportunity for me to start looking at things at more of a global level. So how many emails am I actually sending out in the space of a week? How successful have they been from an open rate standpoint? Am I seeing any massive bounce issues or anything like that? What is my acquisition for the week, for the month, for the previous quarter actually looking like compared to the previous period? I kind of do a lot of that type of reporting centrally in a program within my marketing activities as well. Yeah, I also would probably also recommend using the analyzers and things that sit under the analytics tab. But yeah, outside of that, it's generally what I would deem to be one of the best or easiest ways to kind of manage a lot of the reporting.
Great, thanks so much, Josh. The next question that we have, is there any other way in which we can track sources of registration for events and webinars without using UTM? Ajay, do you want to take that one?
Yep, sure. Well, the easiest answer is that, we need to use UTM parameters, no question about it. Let it be Marketo, let it be if we are using Visible, that happens to be the multi-touch attribution platform of Adobe. And UTM is the key to find it out from which source, which channels, and then, which specific campaign the leads are getting into our system. But if you don't want to do it, then the process is pretty lengthy. Let's assume for one webinar, you want to actually find it out. You need to create specific forms for each source. And that takes a toll. And then, you need to create multiple programs and smart campaigns just in case if you don't want to track UTM parameters. The another thing which you could do is to use original referrer and then, these kind of details, but these are not foolproof. And I would not recommend that. I would highly encourage that, we should always use UTM parameters because this is the best practice to use, not only for Marketo, but for Visible as well, which happens to be the marketing attribution, one of the best marketing attribution platform offered in this industry.
Great, thanks so much, Ajay. And the next question we have is, we have 20% webhooks, which we are actively using to post/get data. Any best practice in Marketo where a user will be notified if a certain webhook is failing? Do any of you
I can
guys
take
want to
this
take
one.
that one?
I can take that one.
You want to take that one too?
Okay, guys. Yeah, you go with that.
I feel like both of us can take it. Yeah, I mean, we might have different answers. Yeah, so the one that, I guess it really depends on the webhook. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the webhook, because if the webhook is sending a response back, we have smart campaigns that are listening for a response that does not contain OK or like already registered. I think it really just depends on, what that webhook is doing and then the response of that webhook. So I know like a splash webhook or maybe I think this one that I'm looking at right now is for an On24 virtual event, right? So On24 will send back a response that is OK or registered. But if it has an error or it does not contain OK, we have an alert that's set up where it will be, it actually goes through Trey and then it sends us a Slack alert, but you can also just set up an email alert to go directly to your admins if that fails.
Ajay, do you want to put
Ajay, I don't know if you have a different answer.
No, I was about to say the same thing which you just mentioned, Kyle. So we are good. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Next question that we have, Grace is going to take this one. The question is, how can you accurately track when someone has registered for invite 1 versus invite 2 for an event or webinar?
There are a few different ways you could do this. Like, I think we would all testify, like most things in Marketo, there's like 365 ways to do any one given thing. But one of the ways I would recommend to do this would be using nested email send programs in your event program that send out your invites. There's a few reasons for this. One of them is you can track this sort of stuff through program statuses, and program statuses, in my opinion, are one of the best ways to report on pretty much anything in Marketo, especially when you take into consideration things like the data retention policy. Program status stays for a long time. So if you need to come back to something like this over time, like 6 months later, that data will still be there. But there's also a bunch of other functionality that you get available to you if you use an email send program for stuff like this. You can do one thing which is quite helpful for invites in particular. You don't want to use it for reminders to attend, but if you're doing an online event, which I think most of us are these days, you can use send and recipient time zone on an email send program, and that's the only program you can use that on. So there's a bunch of other benefits to doing that. You can do it as well through like smart campaigns along the way that are looking at the time of registering or events teeing off one another. But in my opinion, those tend to get messy and tend to be a little bit less reliable, whereas doing it through nested email send programs and program status through those, you tend to get much more reliable results. That'd be my recommendation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Grace. The next question that we have is, what is the best way to manage time-sensitive images that are used across multiple emails and or landing pages? We often reference rankings or awards in our images which change regularly. Is there a way to use tokens or snippets without overwriting the file in the design studio or replacing the image in each aspect? Who wants to take that one?
I can take that. If people aren't sick of hearing me talk back to back. Or Josh and I could have a battle royale over it.
We can fight over this one. Yeah, I guess from my... You go, Grace.
You go.
Oh, good. Yeah, there's the interesting idea of using tokens or snippets or things to look at managing this. If you're managing your images for landing pages, then yeah, absolutely. Looking at using some tokens or snippets where you're kind of updating the image URL in a program token or in a folder token is totally a great way to look at doing that. The difficulty that you're going to have is that that's not going to do anything for an email. The only way to really swap out an image on an email, especially when that's already been sent, if it's something that's very specific like this, where it's awards or something like that, which is set up for a limited period of time, is to generally just overwrite the actual asset under the images and files section. It's not going to be the most perfect solution, but unfortunately that's one of the only things that we've got in our back pocket to really deal with that one there.
Awesome. Grace, do you have anything to add to that, or was that what you were going to say as well?
The only thing I would add to it is like Josh said, if it's time sensitive, affecting an asset that has already, email in particular, that has already been sent, that's where it's complicated. If you're just talking about like say nurture programs and you have when the next cast of an email is going to go out, tokens are perfect for that. Snippets work really well for that as well. I often, to be completely honest, I haven't actually used snippets that much because I've generally, in most of the use cases I've worked through, found that tokens work pretty much just as well for 99% of the use cases, and they're much easier to handle. I'm sure people will kill me for that opinion, but that's the use cases that I've generally found. Yeah, if it's an email that's already sent, the only way you can really change it is through a URL, through to the URL, same destination URL the image was on. The one thing to note on that though is that in itself can be unreliable, because if someone's already loaded that and the image has been cached, it's going to load the original cached image. And you'll see that if you go through and you're making changes and you overwrite something and then you have to do a force refresh on your browser to see the change come through.
Awesome. Thanks, you too. Next question that we have, what are the cons of using MQL as a program status? Any takers here?
I'll take it if no one else is going to dive in.
Ajay, do you want to take that one?
Talking.
Have you asked me?
Yeah, would you like to take that question?
Yep, sure, of course. So there is a concept of so there is a concept of lead life cycle. So MQL is a part of lead life cycle process, whereas when we are talking about program statuses, then program is just a tactic. And that there can be many tactics on many campaigns during the entire lead life cycle process. So a specific program can definitely influence a lead to fast track to MQL, but it should be managed separately because that is always the best practice. If you will be having the program status as MQL, what if the lead gets MQL again, and then what if you are going to disqualify it, then you need to change the statuses of all these, the entire lead lifecycle process, these programs, which is very cumbersome. So the best thing would be, let's have one global program which is listening to your behavior and demographic scores and graduating the leads based on these scores, and then thereafter putting them either back to nurture, or whenever these leads get disqualified during the or by the sales team, then these are being moved to the different stages accordingly. And then so we should usually avoid using a program level MQL status, in my opinion.
Awesome. Grace, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree with that. I think, just echoing, it's just, I think it's going to be a lot more work to try to manage that afterwards if you do it on the program status. Like Ajay was saying, it makes so much more sense to do that in one specific lifecycle program, to track it that way, just because, especially later down the line, if you do change what qualifies a lead as an MQL, now your reporting is going to be really skewed when you're looking at historic data as well.
Awesome. Anything else for any of you to add to that, or should we go on to the next one? We're ready? All right. Next question. With the holidays coming up, we would like to pause emails from going out in all of our nurture campaigns for a set period of time. Is there a way to manage this globally? Who wants to take this one?
Yeah, I can take that one. This is something that I'm trying to consider at the moment as well, actually. Yeah, because we've got a number of niche programs across multiple business units in one Marketo instance. So trying to look at finding a way to essentially pause that cadence is a bit tricky. To the best of my knowledge, there's no real easy way to really sort of cancel or pause that at a global level. The easiest way that I'm going to be going through is to essentially just, for a short period of time, deactivate each of them, to just go through each of those niche programs, switch them off, update the sort of the cadence details on there so they're actually not running over that period of time. Most of that is is probably more work than what I'd need to. For me, it's just extra proof, just double proofing, triple proofing everything to make sure that they're never going to send over that holiday period. It is a little bit of upfront work. It's not it's not as clean or easy as just sort of going pause all niche programs. But that's probably one of the only ways we're going to be able to deal with that one, unfortunately.
Awesome, thanks, Josh. Does anyone else have anything to add to that one? Nope. All right. Next question is, how do I generate a unique referral tracking link for each of our members in a Marketo referral email campaign?
I have a way that I've done this before. I have no idea whether the way that I did this previously is going to be best practice or not. It could be terrible, but I have done this before.
Okay, do you want to take this one?
Sure. So the way that I previously did this was to, so I'm sure many of you will have heard of the term Zapier, which I always used to call Zapier until someone told me that their tagline is makes you happier, so it's Zapier makes you happier. There you go. If you learn nothing today, you learn that. But what I used to do was use a webhook and fire out to Zapier/Zapier. I need to train my brain into saying it properly. To generate a random code that was basically the first letter of this person's name, 3 random numbers, the first letter of their last name, 3 random numbers, something like that. And then basically append that to, I can't remember the name of the tool that I used. This is what happens when you're kind of speaking on the fly. There was a tool that I found that could turn it into a bit.ly link with it wasn't a bit.ly link, but it was something like that would basically input all of the tracking code that we needed and then spit it back into Marketo. So there are definitely ways you can do it. Zapier is the way that I used it, pairing it with another tool which probably has a native integration with Zapier, which is probably how I found it. I hope you can get enough information from what I just said to figure out how to Google it to find what you need.
Yeah, and then I've actually done this once as well. And I haven't done it at my current company, but I know there is, I believe it might be an extra add-on with Marketo, but you can use personalized URLs. So you have to turn it on in admin. If you click landing pages, you can turn on, I think it's just called personalized URL. And then when you're on a landing page, you can turn it on for that specific landing page. And what that would do is it automatically gives everybody in your database a unique name and a unique code. So then if you have a URL that's like marketo.com/champion office hours, and then another slash, you'd put that unique code at the end, and then it tracks all of that activity back to that person. But I do think it is an extra add-on with Marketo. I know I don't think I have it in my instance, but that is one kind of out-of-the-box solution on how to do that in Marketo.
And I'll jump in again. I think it kind of depends on exactly what your use case is and exactly what functionality you need. I think when I did it, we were trying to auto-populate a ton of hidden fields on form when the link was used, and that's why we needed to have a shortened URL, because we were passing a bunch of information through the query string. That's the word.
Gotcha. And then the one thing with the personalized URLs that I would recommend doing is not using the first name, last name one, just with GDPR and showing PII in a URL a lot of times. I know our legal department has advised us against it. So that's the benefit of using the Marketo unique code instead of doing the actual name. So you're not showing any PII in the email or the link. And then that just saves you a whole lot of headache down the road.
Great tip, Kyle. Awesome. So the next question is, how do I generate a unique referral tracking link for each of our members in a Marketo referral email campaign? Oh, that was the one that we just did. I'm sorry. The next one is it's late here in Denver, Colorado. Next question is, any little known tips or tricks that you can share to make the life of a Marketo builder easier? Josh, do you want to take that one?
I can start on that one. Yeah, I can definitely start that one. The best thing to do if you are a builder is to actually template as much of your programs as you can. One of the best things that I do I sort of basically admin for a global Marketo instance. We have, I think it's now up to 19 different field marketers across the world who are builders. They aren't Marketo admins, they're not experts, they are just builders. And one of the things to kind of simplify their lives that I do is to template as much of their process as I possibly can, so that they literally don't have to build from scratch every time. That saves them anywhere from sort of half an hour to 2 hours for every program that they're having to look at build up from scratch. template as much as you possibly can on each of these things is absolutely the best thing that I could suggest for these things for builders.
Great. And I would like to add a couple of things over here to what Josh just said, that create a folder in Marketo for all your events, webinar programs, and call it as template. And then, start cloning them. And, whenever you're making any changes to the program, let's assume if you want to get one specific field updated for lead sources, means, just in case if you have 3 or 4 sub lead source fields, you can just get only that specific template updated. And then, whenever someone is cloning that, your changes will be cascaded. Another thing would be to follow a nomenclature when you are setting up all the programs and assets, because that really helps. So these are the things. And plus one more thing which I want to tell you, that create a master email template which will be having almost 70 to 80 modules. So what it does that, you need not to rely on your web developer to tweak or every time customize each template. It will be having all sort of look and feel kind of modules, which will be having the text left aligned and right aligned. And just like Josh said, that you use templates, let it be of program template, or maybe we are calling it is not a template, but yeah, it is just a specific programs which we can use as a template, and use a sophisticated email template which has many modules, so that you are not building it again and you are not working with your web developer to get these small little tweaks done again and again.
Thanks so much, Ajay.
Hi, you going
the
next?
Next question we have is...
I might jump in before we move on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, go ahead, Grace.
I feel like we can pass the baton on this one. Now I say that, and there are so many things that I could list, and I also have an eyelash in my eye, which is kind of stabbing me and distracting my brain from functioning, so bear with me a little bit. I'm not crying. So we've talked about program templates, we've talked about really good email templates. Both of those are really good, and I underscore those points. Some of the other things I would mention is tokens. Tokens are, I've said this like 3 billion times, tokens are one of my favorite things in Marketo. I say it because it's true. I love them. They're great. They're really, really useful. I won't go into a ton of detail about like all of the different ways that you can use them and what they are and all of that sort of stuff, because I do know we do have a really good video. Well, I think it's good, at least. A really good video on the Automation Geeks where I go through like half an hour of everything you need to know about tokens. So if you're interested and you don't know about them and you want to use them, check us out on YouTube and go look up that video. I think it's the most recent one we did. But tokens are fantastic, and they will make your instance way more efficient. So I highly recommend that. One of the other things I would say, gosh, this is all going to sound like a self-plug. One of the other things I would say, though, is that QAing is one of those counterintuitive pieces of the process that like people think adds tons of time and can be a waste of time. In my opinion, it's the opposite. Yes, it can add a little bit of time to your process, but long term it saves you tons of time because it generally stops you making lots of mistakes, especially if you make them repetitively. One of my mantras with Marketo is just, this is why we test. Because when we test, we find things wrong, and then you don't have to feel bad about things being wrong because you caught them in testing. So if you don't have a clear, repeatable, that's the word. If you don't have a clear, repeatable structure for QAing programs and emails and all of that sort of stuff, create one. Get your users to, if you have users, get your users to run through it. Even if you don't have users, run through it yourself. Ideally, having someone else QA work other than the person who built it is a really good idea. But if you don't have that option because you're a single person in your instance, QAing your own work is still better than nothing. There are some really great templates, but I did create one on the Marketo community. I think it's called the Ultimate Go Live Checklist or something. If you search Marketo community, there's like a rather insane, quite comprehensive checklist on there that I put together that you are not meant to use the whole thing. You're meant to pick bits and pieces that work. Don't do the whole thing. It's insane. But tokens and QAing are the two things that I would add if I could only add two. And I don't think I can spend an hour talking about this because
Awesome. Thanks, Grace.
Cool. And then
Kyle, do you want to add on?
Yeah. I mean, just to add on, every single one that these guys have said has been spot on. Another thing that I really like to do when doing QA testing is I actually presented on this at the Adobe Summit for QA is with Gmail, you actually use one email address and then just add in additional characters after with a plus. So like my email address could be kmccormick@palatonetworks.com. If I do like kmccormick plus Canada at palatonetworks.com, that creates a new record in Marketo, but the email address and the email is still sent to my normal email address. So what I have in our database, like all of our target markets, I have kMcCormick plus Singapore, kMcCormick plus Japan, kMcCormick plus Germany. And I have in all of those records, the country is, Japan, Singapore, Germany. So now when I fill out a form, I'm testing it as a lead or as a record from Japan. It'll still get my email address or the email sent to my normal email address. So I don't have to create 15 or 20 different email accounts. I can just use that one account for testing. And the other thing is like data standardization and normalization. Highly recommend having that in Marketo, because as you have more data integrations coming in, your data can be dirty, and you don't want to spend time troubleshooting like why a lead didn't sync over to Salesforce. Maybe you have validation on the country or on state. So just having that normalization and standardization in Marketo will save you a lot of headache when records aren't coming in the way you expect it to.
Awesome. And there was a question that came in while you guys were speaking about this in reference to this subject. They said, is it too late to introduce that for form? I think that was what you were speaking to, Grace, beforehand.
To introduce what?
We'll need a follow-up question.
Whoever you are, type it into the question box now.
Yeah, type it into the QA, whoever.
We might loop back to it.
Okay. Okay. This is the follow-up question. When my Marketo instance was first set up, we had a new record created when there is a unique first name and email combination via list import. Now, a few months later, we want that form submission too. Is it too late to introduce this for form? Can anyone speak to that?
I'm not sure what the ask is here.
I'm sorry. Yeah, me neither.
All right, no worries. Let's go. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Oh, we have one more. We talked about the do's. What are the don'ts for when you are a Marketo builder?
I got a good one. I do not set up triggers to auto-delete records out of Marketo. Biggest lesson that I learned when I was, like 2 months into using Marketo, I was like, oh, I'm going to set up a trigger that when someone is blacklisted to delete that record out of Marketo. Worked great for a couple months, and then one day I accidentally blacklisted our entire database and then realized that our entire database kept getting smaller and smaller. I was like, that's really strange. And I forgot that I had a trigger that once you're blacklisted to delete your record. So definitely don't do triggers to automatically delete records. I would recommend doing that on a batch campaign just so you can actually review what's going to get deleted before any record gets deleted. Biggest lesson learned. Do not set up an auto-delete trigger.
Yeah, Kyle, and just to add it here, just in case if you have created a campaign and you might have accidentally deleted a flurry of records, you can always lodge a support ticket, and then, if, the activity happened within the last 7 days, the support team will be able to work with the data engineering team and will be able to retrieve the data back. But the catch is that you need to have a smart campaign which is deleting it. If you are just selecting the record and deleting it, you may not be able to retrieve that. But with the help of that, the campaign ID, you will be able to do it. This is just for the users. And Kyle, well, great experience.
Yes. Oh, it was great. I mean, it was my first job out of college. I was just right outside I stepped that trigger when I was an intern and then got hired on full time, started deleting records. It was great. Great lesson learned very quickly.
Josh or Grace, do you have any don'ts for the team here?
I'm there. Without being too scary, there are a lot of don'ts. I don't think we necessarily have enough time to cover all of the don'ts. I think if we have been obviously talking about a lot of the do's. In terms of some of the big don'ts, I think what Kyle has touched on is definitely one of the big ones. I think from my standpoint, some of the big don'ts for me are some of the things that we have actually kind of implemented around within my organization is because we work so global. There are some areas where buying lists are it's not best practice, but it's technically still okay. But down in other regions like it is here in New Zealand and same with Australia and many others, it's just not. And so my biggest is just never do it, because you can't ever guarantee the quality of the lead, the quality of the data, the quality of any of the information you're uploading. It's just a waste of your time and a waste of your money. For me, that's probably one of my really big don'ts. Grace?
I'll jump in with one as well, on a slightly more positive twist, because like the others, I think I have 3 million things where I'm like, don't do that. But also, never assume that something is not possible. That would be one of my big ones. Pretty much every time I've ever had someone ask me if we can do something and I have said no, I have later, whether it's been like an hour later or like 2 or 3 years later, I've been proven wrong. There are like ways to do basically just about anything if you have the knowledge, if you have the experience, if you have the resources, if you have the technology. Like, we have the power kind of thing. So stuff like, particularly where this comes into play is like things you can do using Velocity script, things you can do using JavaScript, things you can do with a webhook or through the API, or if you're not comfortable with, the tricky thing to that is a lot of the answers generally seem to require some sort of development skill. If you don't have that, or you don't have dev resource available to you, which I know particularly in the ANZ region is something that people in-house struggle with a lot, tools like Zapier can be really helpful. They're not perfect. They can be limiting. They don't always suit every business, but they can also be a really, really fantastic tool to enable you to do things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do without dev resource, which I know is a situation I've been in multiple times, and it saved my ass multiple times. Am I allowed to say that? Sorry.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Grace. Question that just came in. Do you have any quick tips for how to best enhance deliverability of emails? What should I look out for? Ajay, do you want to take that one?
Sure. This happens to be my favorite topic, not because just I'm a Marketo certified email deliverability specialist, but on and off I have seen this issue popping up for my many clients. So first thing first, the basic thing is that whenever you are setting up your emails, always have a text version of the email as well. So that is the basic thing. The another thing would be to check whether your SPF and DKIM records are configured properly by your IT team. So SPF is Center Policy Framework and DKIM is Domain Key Identified Email. Then another optional but good to have is have your DMARC set up. So your IT team can help you to set up a DMARC policy, and then when the DMARC policy is established, that adds credibility to your sending reputation. Then another thing is related to your IP, whether it is a shared IP or dedicated IP. Let's assume if it is a shared IP, then it is okay. But just in case if it is a dedicated IP and you got it new, then you need to come up with the plan that how you want to warm up your IP, that you're not blasting your emails to all those records, which is going to jeopardize the credibility of your dedicated IP. So that is the another thing. The best thing that you could do is to get the email deliverability module of Marketo subscribed. That is actually tied up within a third-party tool called 250 OK, and that helps you to identify, or that helps you to manage the inbox, or means in a nutshell, it will help you to find it out whether your emails are getting delivered to inbox or spam folder, or being blocked by ISPs, or just in case if there were issues which the within the HTML code of that email, like the alt text missing, or all those issues which can potentially render that particular email in different browsers differently, or maybe potentially moving these emails to the spam folder. You can easily track that. So first thing first, always ensure that your IT settings are placed well. Use the text version and use 250 OK. That comes as a bundle package of Marketo to track whether your emails are getting delivered to inbox or spam folder, or those are being blocked by the specific ISPs. Then you can work with those ISPs and then get that issue fixed. The other cool things would be that not to have very long subject lines, so that many people are not able to see it. Don't use spammy words in the body of the email. But yeah, these are the things which I feel we should consider to improve email deliverability.
Awesome. Thanks, Ajay.
I will jump in.
Grace wants to jump on that question as well.
Yeah. A few things, because Ajay is 100% right on all of those things. A few things I would add, though, to it. More on the softer handling of some of this stuff. There's a few things around best practices of the way you actually send emails beyond the technical setups behind your instance and the testing of deliverability and all of that sort of stuff. One of them is be aware of your audience. Make sure that you know that the people who you are sending to have opted in. You will generally have better engagement from people who have explicitly opted in to receive your emails, and there's a degree to which deliverability is impacted by your engagement and the way that people demonstrate behaviorally that they do want to be receiving the emails that you are sending. So make sure you understand how people have opted in, that they have opted in, that you're not sending emails to people who have not opted in, that you are utilizing Marketo's marketing suspend feature to suppress people who have not been engaging with you. But one of the trickiest things to do here, but in my opinion, one of the most important, is make sure that you are sending emails that people want to receive. Make sure that what the content that you send is good. Make sure that the content that you send is relevant to people. Make sure that they expect to receive this content from you, and that the content that you're putting within your emails meets the expectations that were set up when they chose to subscribe. You're sending them the information that they asked for, whether explicitly or implicitly, depending on what rules you need to follow in your specific region. Disclaimer, we are not lawyers. Follow whatever rules. Get your lawyers to check your opt-in, all of that sort of stuff. Don't trust us. But send good emails, honestly, is what at least 40% of it boils down to, in my opinion. If you send crap, you'll get crap.
Awesome. Thanks, Grace. One of our probably last questions that we are going to have time to answer. The question is, we've just added ABM to our Marketo instance. Do you have any tips for the first-time users of ABM? I think Ajay's going to answer real quickly, and then Josh has also a tip for you guys.
So great for ABM, the account-based marketing. First thing first, we need to have the list of our targeted account. That happens to be the prerequisite. And when we have that list, then what we need to do, that we need to set up those targeted accounts to our ABM platform so that the inbuilt algorithm of Marketo can actually track those leads and contacts and sum up the all scores to give you the account level score. So that is the first thing. And the second thing would be to come up with a strategy that how you are going to engage these accounts, which advertisement platform you're going to use, how many emails you're going to use, and then how best you can use the ad bridge functionality of Marketo to target these better and in much orchestrated ways.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate that last point that Ajay kind of said, the best thing you can look at doing is plan, and then plan some more. A really well-defined strategy is the best thing that you can do when sort of rolling out to your ABM platform. One of the other good things that I would strongly recommend is another one of the champions, Chelsea Kiko. She's created a lot of content on the Marketo community on ABM. So I would definitely recommend hunting her down on the community and checking out a lot of her posts. I know she's done a couple of posts and videos, so definitely recommend checking her out.
Awesome. Yeah, Chelsea is one of our great champions as well. So if you guys want to check that out on community forum, some helpful resources, that'd be great. The last question that we're going to answer today, the question is, how many would you say is a good amount of Marketo users for a regional/global instance? Kyle, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, no, I can definitely take that one. So Palo Alto Networks, I think, is a pretty good example of a global instance. At the company, we have about 10,000 employees. Marketing has about 250 to 300 employees. Our Marketo instance only has about 40 users. So it's really, and those are real users, not API users. We have a ton of API users, but we try to keep Marketo as light as possible. So we want to keep as many users out of Marketo. And one way that we do that is we use NAC as our email building tool. So instead of having the emails built directly in Marketo, which typically requires a lot of user access and a lot of people going into Marketo, we have about 80 people that are creating emails directly in NAC and then sending those over to Marketo. So our email marketing team is about 8 people. They're the ones putting the emails in the program, sending the emails out. We have only 3 Marketo admins for our global company. And then the rest of the users are just kind of supplementary, helpful, going in, checking out what records are. Most of them are going to be read-only users. So, out of the 40, I would say about 10 are actively in Marketo, doing day-to-day activities in Marketo, sending out emails, cleaning data, just making sure everything's up and running.
I'll jump in on the flip side here. That's insane. That's great. You're lucky. I've done, so at my previous role before this, I was at Tourism Holdings Limited, which is a global company, and the Marketo instance that I owned operated for America, Australia, New Zealand for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 brands, 8 different brands, I think it was. I had me and 1, 2, 3 other people who would spend maybe between 10 and 30% of their week in Marketo. So this is a really hard question to answer because it depends so much according to your business and the volume you want to get out the door. What I would say is that what you want to achieve will dictate how many people you need. If all you want to do is get emails out the door, then you can do it a little bit with a slightly smaller team, but you're always going to be limited by how much work those people can get done and how much of their time is supposed to be dedicated to Marketo. You can do it with one person, but that one person is going to be on a hamster wheel of doom, and they're probably going to burn out and probably going to quit within like 6 months to 18 months because it's not necessarily sustainable if you want to be getting stuff like nurture programs built and lead scoring built and all of that sort of stuff. So it depends on, start with what your business wants to achieve, figure out how much time needs to be dedicated to do those things, then figure out how many man hours you basically need to achieve that.
Amazing. And right done in the nick of time. We have a couple seconds left here to wrap up. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you and your questions. Thanks to the 4 champs that are spending their time with us today and their effort, their brain power on this Monday or Tuesday, wherever you are. And we'll send this recording out shortly so that you can have it for your own resources if needed. But thanks again for all of you for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.